Is there anything really better than a good cup of coffee? Definitely not. Welcome back to the Under the Covers YouTube channel. I'm so excited to have you here today because we are going over a big topic.
That's what she said. No time, but she did. No time!
Vocal processing. Wait, vocal processing? Yeah, vocal processing. What is vocal processing? Who uses vocal processing? I've used vocal processing. Do you? You must. Honestly, I guess we'll figure it out. So let's get into it. To kind of start off, understanding what vocal processing is, you have to take it a little bit larger. And you have to understand that it's not just processing on vocals, it's processing an audio signal altogether. So mix engineers, regardless of whether it's in studio or live or even after the fact, like let's say you're watching a live pro shot video of a concert, they will specifically manipulate the audio tracks to get a specific sound. And essentially that's processing at its bare bones. It's shaping or giving texture or adding effects or manipulating the audio in any way. So when we're talking about vocal processing, when we get a little bit deeper into that, what are we talking about? Well, it comes down to using EQs, limiters, compressors, reverbs, delays, all the special spices and salt and pepper to make your song more interesting to its listener or fit better in the mix. So how do you process a sound? How do you process a vocal? Essentially, you're going to take a raw track and you're going to run it through the EQs, compressors, limiters, all those things. And those can either be hardware units, so stuff like I have in the back over here, or they could be plugins, which I will show you up there. Now, they both essentially do the same thing. Of course, there's that classic debate, analog versus digital, a real unit versus a software. But essentially, they all do the same thing. You're going to take your track and you're going to specifically manipulate it in the way that you need, whether that be using that EQ to remove ugly sounds or to embellish beautiful sounds. Each vocalist, each instrument, each sound has its own problematic areas and other areas that you can use to embellish the beauty of the sound. So here's the next big part. Can you hear it? I feel like the answer is yes. Honestly, it's not that hard to hear. We all do it. We all process our stuff, whether it be in the studio or live, like I was saying. It's all just part of music. So when you run it through an EQ, sometimes you'll get weird artifacts, or like a compressor really brings up the lows and kind of tames your highs a little bit, kind of puts it in a box. But I feel like it's harder to hear EQ than it might be to hear reverb for people that are just getting into it, of course. Now, one of the worst offenders, and I feel like people really rip on it, is autotune. We've all heard about autotune, and we all use it. Well, some people claim they don't use it, but then really it's used in some capacity, no matter what. And it might not even be a lot. It's varying degrees is the issue. So you can hear it often, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can't even tell the difference. It all kind of depends on how much you use. But just like anything, you can overdo it or you can underdo it. If any of you follow Joel from Roomy Official, I'll link his stuff down in the description. He did a video with 4 other YouTube musicians where they listen to tracks that he recorded himself and see if they can hear the autotune. And surprisingly, most of them can't. It can be really tough, but I feel like when you start stacking things, it gets a lot easier to hear. So that brings me to the next point. Why do we mention it? Why do we say anything in our reactions? Well, here's the thing. Vocal processing isn't going to make you a good singer. With the head to hand, I do. Vocal processing isn't going to change you from not being able to sing at all to having the best voice in the world. It's just not going to happen. However, if you're 80, 75% of the way there, vocal processing will take you to 100. It'll take you to that next level. The problem becomes is that because we've started overusing it, between the EQs, the compressors, the reverbs, the delays, the auto-tune, it becomes apparent. And to those who don't really like the sound or have trouble with it, have trouble hearing it, or it just kind of peaks out in the mix a little bit too much, we really don't like it. We really don't. Like, it's really tough. I love the sound of a great vocalist. But when they come in and they have a ton of processing, it just kind of turns me off of the whole thing. I don't want to hear it anymore. To me, that is mostly around auto-tune. We mention that because for those that can't hear it, we want them to know that there's something extra here. There's a little more sparkle. When we mention it, we're not trying to say that they're not talented. We're not trying to remove that from them. All we're trying to say is that for those that can't hear it, they need to understand that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than what they realize. Taking the vocalist or the instrument or the sound at face value isn't always the best way to go. You have to understand that they bring out massive rigs live that they use in the studio, and they tour them across the country and across the world, and they use those to make them sound better live. So even when you hear them live, you're still hearing the sparkle and the shine and all the extras. Whereas, let's say the typical singer-songwriter just down the street at the bar, or the local pub or whatever, doesn't get the same processing. So it kind of gives a facade in a way. It's just not entirely raw, which is fine. But it's just that extra little bit that your average person down the street doesn't get. We've all seen those videos where you see your favorite musician out at a bar before they got famous.
Still 15 minutes for my 35. And all is good. Cause talking to you.
You're like, whoa, there's such a huge difference.
Boy, you should know what you're falling for.
Well, I mean, yeah, of course there's a difference. They put $100 mic in front of their mouth and said, have fun. Versus we have $300,000 worth of gear that we're touring across the country with. You're going to sound great. Yeah. Yeah, take that in for a second. Just take it in. Take a sip of coffee. Understand. It's tough. The people that you love and admire and are so excited to see and hear, and you think they sound just so fantastic all the time, it's tough to hear that, you know, they need all this extra sparkle and shine. However, the reality is we all do it. We've all done it. And we will all continue to do it. My vocal, even in this video, has a lot of processing on it. It is what it is. Again, it's a lot to take in. So, grab your coffee, take a sip, take a breath, do weird things with your hands.
I'm not sure what to do with my hands.
That's it. We blew the covers on the whole thing. Vocal processing, out of the way. Secrets out. So until next time, like, thumbs up, whatever. Comment, subscribe, do all the things that people do. And watch out for the next one.